I suppose you're wondering what I'm doing working in a place like the Kit Kat Club.
Well, it is a rather unusual place.
That's me, darling. Unusual places, unusual love affairs. I am a most strange and extraordinary person. Now, tell me all about you. I want to hear everything.
Everything?
Absolutely everything.
Well, there's nothing very dramatic to tell. Well, since I came down from Cambridge,
Leader Putty. Absolutely my favorite screen siren.
Well, when I left Cambridge...
I'm going to be a great film star. That is, if booze and sex don't get me first. Do I shock you, darling?
Not a bit.
Welcome back to the show, everybody.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. Ooh, this is a good movie.
It is a good movie. I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah. I haven't seen it in a while, so I'm glad we revisited. Everybody, listeners, my name's Pete.
And I'm Scott. And these are the movies that made us gay.
Yay. Scott, why don't you talk a little bit about what we watched and our very special guest for the afternoon?
We had our friend Darren back on the show. I think that Darren was one of our first guests, if not the first guest on this show.
Special.
Welcome back to the show, Darren.
We had him over to watch Cabaret from 1972, directed by the one Mr. Bob Fosse.
Thanks for having me back, guys. Thanks for letting me do this movie. It's one of my favorites.
We almost did it for your second movie.
Yes, I've been wanting to do it, and I ended up going with Bedknobs and Broomsticks last time. But this is definitely up there for me. So.
Essential viewing.
Essential viewing.
The Oscars, when we're recording this, are on Sunday, and this has the reputation of the most Oscars won without winning Best Picture.
Huh. Yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Godfather.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shocking that Francis Ford Coppola did not win Best Director for The Godfather.
Fosse got it.
Shocking.
That's insane.
I almost remembered it being, oh, well, Francis obviously won that. But then I looked it up today, and Fosse won Best Director. How do you like that?
Sure did.
And I'd imagine that was probably a pretty close race for Best Picture.
Yeah, those are two really good films in one year. I mean, Godfather obviously is legendary, but I think Cabaret holds its own, and I think it deserved a lot of the awards it won, especially for her. You know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the Best Actress race later in the podcast. I want to talk about that a little bit.
Do you know how many Oscars it did win that year?
It won 8.
It won 8. Mm-hmm. Wow.
Pretty much everything it was nominated for besides Best Picture.
Okay. So that includes Best Actress for Liza Minnelli and Best Supporting Actor for Joel Grey.
Yes.
Yep.
And they also both won the Globes.
Okay.
Yep.
Very cool. Man, these performances.
Yeah.
Crazy. I mean, we'll really get into it, but Joel Grey, I didn't even realize yesterday until yesterday when we were watching it, it just kind of hit me that like his entire performance in the movie is on the stage singing in character at the Cabaret. He doesn't really like have any dialogue lines.
Nope. And that's how it was in the show, the original Broadway show that he originated as well.
Yeah. So that's probably pretty like remarkable for an Academy Award winning performance, right? Mm-hmm. Not having actual lines of dialogue.
Yeah, especially that we don't know all that much about Joel Grey's character, but just the Master of Ceremonies. That's all that you really need to know.
Right. The MC's a cool character. Mm-hmm. I mean, we have to talk about the actual stage production,
right?
Where this movie originated from, and it famously had this huge revival in the 90s,
late 90s, yeah,
93. That was when Sam Mendes directed the one in London, I think.
Okay,
right, started then,
and that's when I really remember this, coming onto my radar, and just Alan Cumming and like just how huge it was then.
Sort of helped launch him in America.
Mm-hmm. But Spice World didn't?
I was going to say not the
Spice World.
Not the Flintstone sequel?
Mm-hmm. It was like both him and Richard E. Grant that sort of walked away with Spice World.
Yeah. Right. Okay. All right. But that's kind of how I remember being introduced to this property, and then kind of going and seeking out this movie and seeing it and just being like, what like teenage, Pete just being like, so what is this?
Speaking of that, Cabaret was first introduced to me because that was our junior year high school production.
Wow.
Right?
I want to see a high school production of
I got the
this.
video.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, it was pretty scandalous even at the time, but we were going to do Oliver, and not enough young-looking kids tried out. So he basically completely shifted gears
other
and
direction.
went different direction and did Cabaret.
We're doing
and,
Bob Fosse kids.
Yeah, and it was pretty great. I mean, I remember going and getting the film when he announced it, and I was like, okay, I need to figure out what this is. And so I went to the video store and I saw the cover of it with her, and I was just like, what the fuck is this? And then you turn the back and you see Joel Grey, and I was like, oh my God, what the hell are we doing?
Yeah.
I watched it. It was so dark and so heavy. And a lot of the gay context didn't really rub off on me at the time. It was more just dark. I remember thinking, wow, this is pretty heavy shit. And the show ended up being a lot of fun to do. And I ended up directing it in college. I loved it so much. And then, just from there saw the revival and read a lot of Christopher Isherwood's books, and
Wow. Yeah. I mean, definitely for me too. I think I must have been a teenager when I saw this, and the gay stuff kind of, I don't know. It's interesting because at that point we didn't have our phones to be distracted by. So I must have been distracted by something else, because I feel like I don't really remember some of the conversations that took place with, between the characters. And so, I feel like Brian, is his name Brian?
Mm-hmm. Brian in the movie, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like Brian's kind of sexuality or bisexuality kind of maybe went over my head a little bit. And then I feel like, to me as a kid, the parts that weren't in the club, I was just like, get back to the club.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They're a little slow.
Yeah.
As an adult, I appreciated them more.
Yes.
But back then, it was more about the razzle-dazzle of the Cabaret numbers, for sure.
And now I feel like I'm even more interested, like you said, I'm so much more interested in the backdrop and kind of seeing the subtle hints of the rise of Nazism, and, seeing how many uniformed soldiers there are in the club, in the scenes, and all of that.
Do you notice how progressively throughout the movie they start showing up more and more?
Yeah.
And it's so brilliant the way he directed it.
Things like that just completely went over my head, on first viewing. So there's a lot to unpack.
So when I first watched this movie, I did not watch this movie until late. I was in my late 20s that I just on a whim rented it off Apple TV. It's one of those movies that it's like Citizen Kane. Even if you have not seen this movie, you've seen it referenced.
Yeah.
Just because I remember there's even a gag on The Simpsons when they're doing the film festival that Mo does his own little Master of Ceremonies.
Yeah.
We have Mo the bartender in Mo Better Booze. Money gets you one more round. Drink it down, you stupid clown. Money gets you one more round, and you're out on your ass. Whoa! Ah, my back!
It was stuff like that I was familiar with, and I knew of the revival of the stage production from the 90s because I'm pretty sure that I must have saw someone on Rosie O'Donnell do it.
It was everywhere.
And just kind of a revolving door of celebrities that used to do Sally. Just sort of liking the movie Chicago, you kind of knew that Bob Fosse had done Cabaret in the early 70s. So I was familiar with it even if I hadn't seen it.
Right.
And when you watch this movie, it's a musical, but I mean, what do they call that? Like a diegetic. A diegetic musical that everything is sort of in its story.
The movie's very different from the stage production, if you guys have seen that. And, what he did, Bob Fosse did, is he basically eliminated any of the songs that the sub-characters, like the landlady, who's now been reduced to kind of more of a very, very small part.
Right.
I think she barely talks in it.
Yeah.
Her boyfriend, the Jewish man who lives in the building, the prostitute. Those characters all were reduced to just small, tiny, tiny parts.
Right.
And they brought in characters that were from the book, like Natalia Landauer and the Gigolo. Those were characters that were from the book, and so he made those characters, but they don't sing.
Right.
It's all the Cabaret numbers, so he kept the Cabaret numbers pretty much mostly intact. But even if you watch the play, the Cabaret numbers are always a reflection on the dialogue or the scene that happened either previous or coming right after it.
Right.
So, yeah.
And you know what I think is kind of unfortunate is that I think people who may not be familiar with it yet, but are familiar with something like movie musicals like Chicago or even, Moulin Rouge, are going to put this on and just be like, and just even the musical numbers are slow. You know, because it's from the 70s. So it's like, to a modern audience who's not familiar with it, even, you know, when in the opening number, when the MC comes out and he introduces all the girls of the cabaret and they're out there, they just look tired.
It's intimate. He was very real. It's not sparkly and polished.
It's a very lived-in world.
The girls didn't shave their armpits. Their clothes are a little tattered. It's real. That's what I guess it was like.
Yeah.
You know, the world that Christopher Isherwood experienced in the 30s, you know, before he fled when Hitler came to power.
Yeah.
But there was that golden age in the late 20s during the Weimar Republic that was just on fire with this kind of stuff. You know?
And I think it's so interesting that he went for a more realistic take on it, because when you do see something like Moulin Rouge, you're just like, what the hell is going on? It's so polished and
showbiz.
shiny. And,
It's your traditional musical. He really kind of went for the authentic thing. He really wanted the mood to feel that way. The music, even the orchestrations, feel very of the period and very German, very European.
Yeah.
I think he cast quite a few German actors to actually be in the club. I think a couple of the girls are his, like, you know, dancers that he worked with a lot on Broadway, but quite a few, I believe, are German.
I remember in the credits, in the closing credits, the cabaret girls are listed, and then one of them, her name is really big, bigger than the rest. I'm like, well, she must have been a Fosse repertoire player.
Yeah.
And also, Bob Fosse was coming off of Sweet Charity, which did not work out so hot for him, and it was sort of a big bust. So he was almost wanting to sort of redeem himself as a director by doing something like this that can really make him credible again.
Sure. No, and he did a fantastic job. I mean, it's a very different. Again, it's very different from the stage production, but I think it works really well as its own piece.
Right.
You know, I love it.
And Bob Fosse, one of those personalities that the Fosse Verdon came out, which we didn't watch.
Oh, you need to. It's great.
Yeah, but it's one of those things that you're familiar with Bob Fosse, and I watch these things about his life, and I'm going, so he's not gay? He never was?
No.
Ah, okay.
He was a womanizer.
He was a womanizer? What? I mean, it's shocking. It shouldn't be shocking. A straight man can choreograph and direct a musical just as well as a gay person, but it's just like, oh, all right.
And you've never seen All That Jazz, right?
No, I have not.
We should watch All That Jazz.
That's a good one, too. Yeah. And watch Fosse Verdon, because they do quite a bit of background on the making of the movie behind the scenes as well, which is neat. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fun. That's fun. So how old is Liza Minnelli when she's cast in Cabaret?
She must have...
in her 20s.
Well, in the state... Was she... Did he originate anything on stage with this? She did, right?
No, she didn't. So she was in Flora the Red Menace, which in the 60s, right before... which is another Kander and Ebb musical, right before Cabaret. They wanted her for Sally Bowles. Hal Prince said no, she's too good of a singer, and they cast a British actress who did not sing that great, and she kind of did not get great reviews because it's I get the authenticity of having Sally not be a good performer. Christopher Isherwood actually talked in great detail of how Liza Minnelli was way too talented, was nothing like the real Sally Bowles that he based it on, or this woman that he knew. Was a bit of a hack. And so I understand the want to cast somebody who's not as great of a singer.
Right.
And so she did not get the part on Broadway, but Bob Fosse did cast her in the movie. And it's still very controversial about her casting because, again, that character is not supposed to be of that caliber.
Right. But, I mean, does she have 3 big numbers?
At least, yeah.
Yeah, Cabaret maybe this time. And
Money.
Money, yeah.
Money and, yeah.
They're... So, I mean, you just can't, you can't take your eyes off her. She's so good.
Yeah,
she's so good.
It's like
it's so
she
memorable.
Earned every, ounce of that Academy Award.
And it's one of those things that I think that Liza is almost sort of a running joke of just kind of how crazy she is. And that's why we love Liza.
Quirky.
And then you watch
quirky.
this movie and you're like, fuck.
That's it.
Liza
That's
is
why.
also really, really talented too.
Extremely talented. Yeah. I just think she's incredible.
Yeah.
You know?
The first scenes when he knocks on the door and she opens the door and it's just those gigantic eyes. It's her whole face is just all her eyes and these lashes, and she's just blinking at him and talking to him, and brings him into her room in this flat, and you're just like, whatever this is, I want to be in there.
Of course, I may bring a boyfriend home occasionally, but only occasionally, because I do think that one ought to go to the man's room if one can. I mean, it doesn't look so much as if one expected it, does it?
Exactly. I see you've acquired a lot of worldly wisdom.
Oh, not wisdom, darling. Instincts. I have ancient instincts. And I have this strange, mystical, daddish feeling about you. So you're moving right in, okay? Okay?
Okay.
Prairie oysters.
Cheers. Peppermint prairie oyster.
Oh, you got the toothpaste glass.
Intoxicating. She's charismatic. She pulls you in. She's just so there and so present.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't feel artificial. It feels as much eccentricity that she has as that character. I feel like it's so real. She brings a real authenticity to it, I think.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much to unpack here because, like, since we're talking about Liza, we might as well unpack all of that. Like, what's leading to her being cast in this movie and winning the Academy Award. We just watched what is her name?
The Be Kind Rewind
YouTuber. Yeah. We love her. Have
you ever watched the Be Kind Rewind YouTube videos?
Yeah.
She goes into sort of the history of women in film, mainly through the Best Actress race.
Okay.
But I mean, her point was, you know, Liza was kind of brought up to win an Academy Award. She had a nightclub act as a teenager. You know, she was like touring with her mother. You know, all of these things just kind of like directing her path to this moment. And so she just knew what it was to be, you know, this performer and to give this kind of, you know, this role. The fact that it's controversial for, you know, fans of Cabaret as a show is interesting, and we'll have to talk about the other actresses and how they interpret it. But at the time, was it kind of like thought of as kind of a reimagining of the role, or did she kind of like take ownership of like, I'm going to turn this around?
I don't think there's any version of Sally Bowles that existed like that until she did it. Honestly, I mean, those songs existed. Maybe this time was not in the Broadway show. It was written for another show, and they added it to the movie. That's why it couldn't qualify for Best Song that year, even though it was a fantastic song.
Oh, so good.
But Cabaret, there was a bunch of songs that Sally Bowles sings that are not in the show.
Okay. Money
was added. So, I mean, from what I've seen of or heard from the 1966-67 production, you know, that actress could not sing fantastic. Judi Dench played her in London.
Yeah.
And also, you can watch that on
Yeah.
YouTube.
Okay.
Great look up. She is not a great singer.
Yeah.
But she sells
She's
it. It's an
serviceable, but-
actory part.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, again, that character has to really, you have to really love her, kind of hate her. You know, like it's a hard part to play. And she's also, again, not a great performer. So how do you sing those songs?
Right.
And get the audience not to groan, but still fall in love with you. You know, Liza just did all of it, but also sang them really well, which was a choice.
Yeah.
And I don't. And again, for Fosse making it so real, this movie, he obviously wanted her to be a really fantastic performer.
Yeah.
There was some reason he did that.
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
or wanted her to be that way.
I think in the most recent Broadway run, we had Emma Stone.
And that's what got her the role in La La Land, because Justin Chazelle,
Damien Chazelle.
Damien Chazelle, I'm thinking of the guy that did Macbeth, but he had seen that performance, and that's pretty much what got her cast in that movie.
Interesting. I saw Natasha Richardson do it again.
Oh, wow.
Again,
Okay.
one of those.
And
like,
I think she won a Tony for it.
She did.
Yeah.
Again, really well acted. Not a fantastic singer. Not
Right.
terrible.
Right.
But not Liza.
Right.
Caliber singer. And the revival took that approach. Took the original approach of we're not going to make her a belter singer.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, and I was going to say Emma Stone took over from Michelle Williams, who again, great actress, but you
Yeah.
don't think of her as a singer. So people that can come in and sing the part and do it, and do it justice, but you're there to see them, perform the role. So that's very interesting with this character.
Looking up the actresses that have played Sally
Terry
on the
Hatcher.
internet. Terry Hatcher.
I saw that one.
You
Jennifer
did?
Jason
She
Leigh.
was in L.A., yeah.
Okay. Who was MC for that one? Because I know that was kind of not quite a revolving door, but they had John Stamos.
It
And
might have been, oh God, who was it? Was it Norbert Leo Boots? The guy he's a Broadway guy.
Oh, okay.
He might have done the tour, I think.
Didn't Uncle Jesse do
Yeah, John Stamos
Probably.
did
a
it.
stint? Yeah.
Dexter did it.
Dexter,
Michael C. Hall. Neil Patrick Harris
Yeah,
has
of
played
course.
him. Lots of people have played him.
Jolie Fisher, Brooke Shields,
Jolie
Gina
Fisher.
Gershon, Molly Ringwald. I bet Molly Ringwald was good.
Yeah.
Debbie Gibson, Terry Hatcher, and of course Vanna White.
Oh,
Vanna White will be performing the role of Sally
Was
Bowles
probably in her
tonight's
late 40s.
in tonight's
at the time.
Cabaret.
Good
I'll
for
take
her.
a U with an umlaut, please.
Google the image of Vanna White in Cabaret. They're pretty amazing.
And again, we Googled this image of Vanna White in Cabaret, and she has the Louise Brooks
yeah.
black bob, which I think also is something that Liza was probably the first person to do.
Yeah, so she in the 60s production, it's really strange because I have a thing with wigs in shows, and I feel like in a lot of eras you'll have a lot of the women or anybody wearing a wig. It's very of the current period.
Yeah.
And they didn't do a great job with the wigs, I feel like, in the original production. Even Sally has you'll see Judi Dench, it's kind of bouffanty, kind of 60s. And Liza cut her hair herself, apparently.
Oh, wow.
And didn't tell Bob, and showed up, and he was like, "What the hell did you do to your hair?" And she's like, "This is who she is," and talked him into it. Maybe made some modifications. You can find some clips of her with a different haircut.
Oh, okay.
On the internet that's
Okay.
slightly different, but she kind of created that little
this little widow's peak
in the
thing.
front. Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah.
It's so iconic.
Yeah.
Every now and then she'll do something where it'll kind of get a little tousled, and it'll almost look like a little comma. Like when Cher was doing kind of like the Believe era, she had the same thing. But Cher had straight bangs and like a little like comma in there. But the Sally Bowles, a little bit, it's so cool. I don't know how it does that. The green nails.
That's part
Yeah.
of the original.
Is that
I think
a
that's in
note?
the book.
That's a note?
That
Okay.
might be in the book. I think they talk
Sure.
about the green nail
I
polish.
thought it must
yeah.
be because we talk about this a lot. So, when we rewatch these movies, on a 50-inch 4K TV, things stick out that never did.
Yeah,
right.
When we used to watch it, and so I was like, she is living for this green nail polish the whole movie.
Well, there's a lot of
So,
There's
I
also
figured it
no,
had to-
100%, and there's also a lot of swapping between America and Britain, between the book and the play.
Yeah.
and that was a play before it was a musical called "I Am a Camera," and then it was the musical, then the movie. Chris and Sally Bowles are both British in the book. Then it becomes, I think, American and British, and then in the musical, American British, and then it's switched for the
flip
movie.
For the movie,
Yeah,
probably because of just the
Chris.
casting.
Well, and also Chris becomes, Christopher Isherwood. Brian becomes Christopher Isherwood in the
Right,
movie.
right.
So yeah,
Okay, I want to talk about that too because the Brian character, I can't remember the actor's name.
Michael York.
Michael York. We love
The
Michael
very
York.
handsome Michael
Yes,
York.
He's great
I
in
could
that.
listen to that voice
handsome.
all night.
That voice is iconic. This character he's bisexual in the movie. He talks about sleeping with Max.
yes,
In the musical stage production, he's not.
not in the original 1966 version.
Okay.
No,
And that was a big note with Fosse, right? That they had to make him bisexual.
possibly. Well, I don't even know if in the book was it Chris Isherwood was gay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously, the book, Goodbye to Berlin, is not written as the character being gay that I recall explicitly. But he did write a book in the 70s or 80s called Christopher and His Kind, where he kind of retold his time there as a gay man. And so it's much more honest and open. And this just might be a product of the fact that it was written in 1930.
Yeah.
Sure.
33 or whatever. But no, in the musical and play, he's just kind of repressed
Sure.
sexually. And then the movie brought out the bisexuality, and then of course now these revivals, he's kissing men on stage.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, because it's interesting when she first, that first like seduction scene where she's just like, oh, I just got out of the shower and I'm so cold and hug me and all that, and her kind of reaction to it is just like, oh, maybe you don't sleep with girls.
Yeah,
And
she's gonna
just
flip
like,
about
oh,
it.
okay.
Then I'll
Yep.
stop.
All right.
Then I'll stop pestering you about it.
Yeah. Then we'll. Yeah.
She was kind of joking, and then she's like, "Oh wait," and
Yeah.
she's so sincere with
Yeah.
him.
Maybe you just don't sleep with girls. Oh, you don't? Well, listen, we're practically living together. So if you only like boys, I wouldn't dream of pestering you. Well, do you sleep with girls or don't you?
Sally, you don't ask questions like that.
I do.
All right. If you insist. I do not sleep with girls. No, let me be absolutely accurate. I've gone through the motions of sleeping with girls exactly 3 times. All of them disastrous. The word for my sex life now is nil. Or, as you Americans would say, plenty of nothing.
And that's what's so lovely about it. She's like, that character's just like, oh, it's totally fine with me. And she just flips the switch.
Yeah.
And it becomes a different relationship, at least for part of the movie, until they do end up sleeping together.
Yeah.
And falling in love with each other, which is also, complicated.
Yeah. I feel like though for probably 72.
Yeah.
For 72 in a major motion picture,
pretty progressive.
right?
I thought so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For this character,
It was important for me to see
Yeah.
as a young man. I
Yeah.
mean, even high school, maybe it kind of went over a little over my head, but even in my 20s when I would watch it again, I was like, God, this is so amazing. And I wanted to know more about Christopher Isherwood. So I
Right.
read his stuff and went to Berlin. And I mean, it just learned about what that life was like for him back then. And it was just such a fascinating era. And he's it's so great that he captured these characters and that time period.
Yeah, it's something that we kind of talk about on the show that, these kids today, they have no idea what it was like. All we had was conversations in a movie that alluded to...
Or like 5 minutes of celluloid that we could watch that had a moment that we could relate to and understand, that you would go to the video store and watch Morris, and watch a love scene and get to understand what being gay was because you had no other... You didn't have Will and Grace even back then.
Yeah.
You didn't have any exposure to anything. You had to find these films.
Yeah, to go out and
learn
find
them.
Yeah.
And then and again, these are dated references of what being gay is too, but important and super part of my experience.
And we didn't have, like Wikipedia or something. If we did want to do the research, we had to go to the library.
Well, and just think about Christopher Isherwood at this time in 1930 in Berlin. He just had to jump in.
Yes.
He was in a very repressed situation in England, left because of that to go meet his friend Auden, and just fell into this decadent, wonderful Weimar, scene where you could be gay and you could sleep with young men, no problem. And I mean, that didn't exist where he was from. It didn't exist in America, really, not in that way. But in Berlin, it did.
Yeah.
And then it completely blew up, which is...
Yeah.
the tragedy of the whole thing, and part of what this movie talks about is the end of that era,
right?
I mean, literally.
It's there. It's not quite subtext because they do fully have conversations about it. Like we said, when she asks him, and then later on with Max, who, as I'm watching it, I'm thinking, is Max handsome? Yeah, he's handsome.
Super handsome. Oh yeah,
and also like that ginger Fritz, Wepper.
Fritz is
so cute.
Yeah.
so cute.
Yeah, so that's that storyline, Fritz and his girlfriend,
Natalia.
That was kind of brought in.
Yeah, that's in the
books.
book. Well, I
Okay.
know Natalia's in the book. I think he's in the book. He might not be.
Okay.
But the Landauers are characters in the book. Yeah.
I always know her from Stanley Kubrick's Barry Lyndon.
Oh, yes.
I think that she's Ryan O'Neal's mother, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
She's so pretty.
Yeah,
She
she's
is,
beautiful.
yeah,
She's
very
so
beautiful.
pretty.
I think that was a performance that was probably pretty close to an Oscar nomination, but I don't think that she has enough screen time.
I agree with that.
I think that
She's good in it.
I think that subplot needs just a little more.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
It's a bit overshadowed by the other plot with Liza and Michael York, but I still think she holds her own in that.
Yeah.
It's a hard part to play, to be this kind of beautiful, reserved kind of stoic person, but then also having her inch out of that and kind of fall in love with that kind of a gigolo character. She did a good job.
And the Nazis kill her dog.
That was sad. I know. So sad.
That cute dog.
The cute little thin man dog.
So let's talk a little bit about the MC character and kind of like the weird history there. Joel Grey's another interesting one.
He is.
He is another interesting
Father
one.
of Jennifer Grey
Father of
from
Jennifer Grey.
Dirty Dancing.
Yes. Yes.
Who would have been like 13 when they made this movie? Do you imagine like her dad just going off to make Cabaret with Bob Fosse?
I'm assuming they shot it in Germany, right?
They shot it in Munich.
Yeah, I was going to say, it doesn't look like America.
They shot it in Munich in West Germany. Yep.
Very cool. So Joel Grey is he a song and dance man? Is that his career?
Yeah,
What was Joel Grey's career before this movie?
So he was a Broadway guy.
Okay.
I don't know if he did. He might be a little too young at that time to be a vaudeville, I think, because this is like 60s, time.
Yeah.
I know he was in George M. On Broadway, which is another musical. He's just kind of that showman. This is kind of the type of part, he would play. I don't know a lot about he was pretty young when he did this.
Yeah.
And the character supposedly is based on Harold Prince had I think during the war, and it might have been in Germany, maybe not, it could have been somewhere else, a man like this at a club. And he remembered him vividly and thought, this is who I need in this show. And I think kind of gave Cantor Nebb that framework. And like, we're going to tell the story of Christopher Isherwood's, book through the lens of this cabaret that's going to bookend each scene and give you perspective on what's happening. Kind of it's a satire, a take on it, and, from the eyes of how it's being viewed by the public or by, within the scene of the nightclub, and I think the movie takes it to another level because they introduce a lot of like circusy kind of like acts, like the mud wrestling and all that stuff, and turn it into brutality. I mean, it's so smart the way he took the idea of a cabaret, which wasn't necessarily just entertainment, it was also political satire, and brought that into the nightclub.
And the characterization in the movie is really cool. It's like, it's spooky, it's edgy, it's like, it's really wild and over the top.
It's kind of like the original gender fuck drag.
Kind of.
Is he a man? Is he a woman? I don't know. Is he both?
He plays it in a tuxedo, but he also plays it in like this crazy, pancake makeup. Yeah, very androgynous.
Pink bow tie, kind of, like sexual, but also like you're not sure where and what, and a little. I always thought of as a high school student when I first experienced that character, I thought him as the devil. Yeah, like he was like a little satanic character, like he was evil. And I don't know if he is, and I know they turned that around for the revivals. They made him a victim, which I thought was fantastic because I think he's often associated as being the dark, kind of menacing face of Nazism, and kind of that happening and him kind of, commenting on it and very dark. I don't know if that's necessarily true the way it's been reinterpreted. So I don't know. I see him very differently now. It's complicated.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about how they changed him around for the revivals?
Yeah, the revival. Well, they took out a lot of the formal tuxedo kind of MC version. They made him much more sexual, I think, much more openly sexual. Yeah. I think as far as his interactions with the other characters and with men, on stage, he dances with them and flirts with them. But most iconically, I think what they did with the revival is they made him at the end a victim of the Nazi regime. Okay. They strip him down at the end, and his, Auf Wiedersehen, Aviento, good night, is his death, where he's basically executed for being a Jew and gay. They put the star and the triangle on him, which I mean is just like, you just completely. I've never seen that done, obviously, until that production, and I'm like, oh, they made him so human. Yeah. I don't think he was as human before. He was a fascinating character and like an icon of musical theater as in Joel Grey's performance, but not like that. Yeah. And that's what I loved about that production is they took that show and turned it inside out,
Yeah.
modernized it in a way that, it wasn't as period, but it meant more.
And this is the Sam Mendes one?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
sure. And he directed both the 93 one and when
Correct.
they brought it to
To-
the West End.
Correct. So
Started in the West
Jan
End project.
was in the, as you mentioned, was in the London. Horrocks is our last name?
Horrocks, yeah.
And then when they did it on Broadway, they took Natasha Richardson, but Alan Cumming played the MC in both.
Okay.
And then later went on to play the MC in Cher's Burlesque. The
True.
same character.
A version of the same character. And this is where we get the iconic costuming of the MC in those like braces, the almost a harnessy kind of situation, no shirt.
Yeah, probably very modern. I don't know if that existed in the 30s.
Yeah.
Probably not. It
Probably
may
not,
have, but
yeah.
it works.
Yeah, definitely. Joel Grey's characterization is a little bit more almost clownish, I would say, but in a commedia dell'arte kind of a clown.
Yeah, it's kind of kabuki.
Right.
you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, kabuki. And Joel Grey, the actor, like you said, father of the actress Jennifer Grey from Dirty Dancing. I think he has another child. He was married for several years. All of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but he gets divorced from his wife and writes a memoir in his 50s or 60s. And in the memoir is just like, guess what, everybody? I'm gay.
He came out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Comes out as an older man. But I mean, hey, good for you.
Yeah.
If it took that long, whatever, that's your journey. But yeah, that's Joel Grey. And the whole time I'm watching his performance, because he's got this crazy like kabuki makeup on him, and I'm looking at him going, look at that little teeny tiny nose.
We were fascinated with his profile.
His nose comes to this like teeny little
pointy
point.
nose. Yeah.
This little pixie nose.
Yeah, I was like, gosh, do you think that was one of those Hollywood movie industry like crazy nose jobs from the 50s or something? That just,
Oh God, it's possible. I didn't even think about that.
because it's very pointy, and I don't know if that's like nature.
It's like father, like daughter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's a very fun character, but we have to. Okay, so we talked a little bit about Max. We should kind of talk about that character. and
I'm
kind of
very
what he brings
fascinated with
to-
this
to
characterization.
these two.
There's a lot going on with this guy.
So he's rich.
He's very, very rich.
They're uber
They
rich.
bring their butler out on their little rowboat with them. That is just pouring them champagne as Liza's just posing
Yeah.
in front of the boat.
What does she say about the caviar? She orders caviar, and then she's like, "And what are you all having?"
Yeah, right. Oh God, I love her in the scenes because she's just loving every minute
Yeah.
of being in that scene with him, and Brian being
Yeah.
jealous, and it's so great. It's so sexy. There's something just so awesome about that part of the movie. I don't know
Yeah.
what. It just completely shifts gears.
It's cool because the Brian character, you can tell he's uncomfortable with the way that Max is treating them for everything and just throwing the money around, giving them these gifts. But Sally is very much, she is just leaning into it. And I think she just has that attitude of just like,
Come what may.
yeah, this is our life now.
Well, if
and
he
this
wants
is our
to,
life today.
If he
So-
wants to pay for expensive, nice things for
Yeah,
us,
let's
we're we to
order
turn
it.
up our nose to it.
Yeah. And what does he give to, or what does she say that he gives her?
He gives him. He gives her the fur,
He gives the fur, right?
and I think
the
he
fur.
gives a watch or a cigarette.
It's a
case.
cigarette. It's a gold cigarette
He gives
case.
because he
him a
puts it in the
cigarette case.
sweater, which is so sexy.
Oh, I
that
love
scene.
that scene. And that's
blue
when we
sweater.
get all
Yeah,
of the
the blue
tea
sweater.
about the agreement with his wife.
Right.
Yeah.
He was out of town. Yeah, and that beautiful estate. And the
All of that sexual tension when he takes off his shirt and he gives him the sweater and he says that blue really is your color. So good.
so
Yeah.
good and subtle and just right.
Yeah.
Just right.
Yes. He gives him the cigarette case in one scene, and Brian is
refuses
kind of
it.
like he
Yeah.
refuses it.
Yeah.
Then there's the scene in the in the wardrobe with the sweater and all that, and it's kind of rolled up in there. But then later on, well, I guess that's at that like Oktoberfest. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about
There's
that.
a seduction that happens, and I feel like Sally's seduced by the money. I think Brian is seduced by the intimacy of this
Yes.
man and this handsome man, and that he has access to somebody. And I think the money is just part of it.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's really his interest in Max. I think he's attracted to him, and that scene establishes that really well.
The moments when they're kind of all dancing around, the three of them, that's the closest we get in this movie to having this, like, you know, this scene of male intimacy, right?
Right.
And it's something.
Yeah.
You know, it's something for 1972. They don't exactly kiss.
I kind of love that they don't.
Yeah.
Because it's all just this build up.
Yeah.
The whole movie is build up, and it keeps you guessing and going. I don't need the explicit. That's the whole part of this. It's all simmering beneath the surface, and that's this whole movie is simmering beneath the surface.
Yeah.
Nazism is simmering beneath the surface. You know, sex is simmering beneath the surface.
Yeah.
That's what this movie is.
Yeah.
You know.
When so they're all kind of dancing together, they're in a circle, the three of them, they're getting closer and closer and closer, and eventually Brian just kind of like, I guess he's playing it like he's drunk.
Yeah.
Because he kind of just like breaks away, lays on the couch, and is just like, oh, you know, I can't.
Right.
And Sally's just like, oh, okay, you know, whatever. They kind of go and comfort him. And to me, I'm like, is he really drunk? Is he scared? Is he kind of having a freak out moment of, I don't want to do this with Sally. I don't want to do this with Max. We don't know.
Or maybe this is a way to end the scene without having a orgy threesome.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
in 1972.
Yeah.
And
you know?
I mean, possibly something did happen with Max and Brian.
Well,
that
he
we
says it
didn't
does.
See.
It does.
Yep.
He says it does.
Mhm.
Yeah. Sally and Brian they're having an argument.
Yeah.
Later on, they get back. What's when they get back to Berlin, right?
Yeah.
And what does she say? Like, oh, do you think I'm sleeping with him or something? Or
Yeah, she says something like, I do.
Oh, yeah.
Or something like, or screw Maximilian.
Yes.
And she goes, I do.
I do.
And then he goes, so do I. And she's fucking pissed.
yeah,
Because she didn't even expect that.
No.
I mean, I think that she would be open, but she's so jealous, and the rage that happens with
Yeah.
that moment, even though she's comfortable with this homosexuality, that idea that could have happened behind her back really
Yes.
pisses her off.
yeah. I think that's what it is. To me, that character, that girl, it's just that kind of like FOMO moment.
Yeah.
He could have said like, we went out on the lake without you.
Right.
And she might have been just as pissed.
Sally's used to
But I
being the
think
center of attention.
She just
Exactly.
was like,
Yep.
you did this with him without me. I think.
She usually calls the shots or gets
Yeah.
what she wants. And
Yeah.
this moment, it wasn't exactly about her.
Yes. But yeah, the argument they're having, they're talking about Max. She keeps talking about him. And Brian is just not having it. And he just says, screw Max. And she says, I do. Thinking it's going to be like this, like,
Yeah.
Gotcha.
yeah, gotcha moment. And he's like, oh, guess what?
So do I.
So do I.
And it's the way he says it. It's just so resigned and
Yeah.
just honest, you know?
Yeah, it's very quiet. It's very quiet from
Quiet.
him. He's just like, so do I.
So do I. Kind of knowing the humor and the joke of it all.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And that's kind of the last that's not the last we see of Max. Is that before or after?
He ends up leaving. And
Yeah.
it's not really explicit how, or, you know, in detail to what happens, why
Right.
Max leaves. It seems like it's something to either do with politics, or it has to do possibly with the complications of his homosexuality.
Right.
Sure.
That he freaks out and decides to pull away. It's kind of, he's very angry when he leaves, even
Yeah.
though he's not necessarily, he didn't come away from a conversation with someone. He's just a little upset.
Well, they have a couple of kind of not run-ins, but they see, you know, Nazis out in the street.
When they go to Oktoberfest.
Yeah, but even before that, they see them, and Max is very ambivalent about it.
Yes.
He's just like, oh, the Nazis are there,
That's
but
the attitude.
they serve a
Yeah.
purpose, and, you know, we just
They're
kind of...
keeping the
they're
communists
keeping
out of
keeping the communists
Berlin.
out of Berlin.
Yeah.
And, you know, Brian's just like, I don't know, dude, that's, you know, maybe... he's not so sure about it. And then when they're at the Oktoberfest thing, and the kids singing the song, and then everybody in the
joins
crowd
in.
You know, we're in
joins
trouble.
in. Yeah. And that's when he says, oh, okay, do you still think we can keep him, you know,
And he kind of shrugs.
yeah. And he's
Yeah.
just like, eh.
That's the attitude.
And that's
the
kind
beauty
of-
of Cabaret, this sort of blind ambivalence to what's happening around you until it's
Yeah.
too late.
And I read that I don't know if it was Isherwood or the quote unquote real Sally were kind of, what they didn't like was the fact that their kind of politics weren't as visible in the characters in the movie.
Right.
And I think she was just like, we were very anti
Right. Yeah.
Nazi.
He didn't like,
and Sally in the movie is not.
And Sally just doesn't really seem to have an opinion on any
She
of it.
doesn't. Yeah, she's.
Christopher Isherwood apparently did not like the movie. He saw it, but he did not like the movie. I think he was okay with the stage play, but I don't think he even loved that. He never felt like anyone got Sally right. Christopher, Brian, or Cliff, or any of the other incarnations of his character, he felt that Michael York did a nice job. That it was, and I do believe that feels like Christopher Isherwood to me. His portrayal, like he did his homework, and he was like, "I'm going to try to honor this man who created these stories." It feels right to me, even if he's not an open out gay man like Christopher Isherwood was in the early 30s. There is an essence of him, that Englishman, and that kindness and that kind of curiosity that comes through really well in Michael York, I think.
Okay, yeah, it's interesting because. Sally as a character, it's an archetype now.
She's the party girl.
She's a party girl.
She's there for a good time.
Is she this unattainable kind of woman? Is she like a Holly Golightly kind of
dare we say manic pixie dream girl? I kind of loathe that term, but I mean,
stupid, but
it's in cinema for a reason, because you see it a lot.
You see it a lot, and it's an archetype. So it's like maybe
she's sort of the vessel for self-identity for your white male protagonist.
Yeah,
she's kind of taken a life of her own. She's the invention of whoever's playing her at this point.
Yes,
because she's been done so many different ways and so well.
Yeah.
I mean, depending on your take on what that character needs to be, but she's probably just completely eclipsed the original woman.
Oh, yes. Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like there's something I saw a while back that kind of goes into Christopher Isherwood's original story. I think it was a British miniseries or TV film that came out with Matt Smith, and they talk about that character, and she's much a more accurate portrayal, I think, of what that character is supposed to be. Okay. She's not that grand. I mean, she's eccentric, yes, and but she's very smart, and she's very charismatic, and she's definitely decadent and does all the stuff. But there's something about just it being a musical and having her sing that it just kind of takes on its own life.
So when we did look up Jane Horrocks, her performance from the '93 revival. Her performance, we watched her sing Cabaret, the title song. And she's got a blonde bob. And her performance is almost static. She's just standing behind the microphone, screaming the song into the mic, arms at her side.
What good is sitting alone in your room? Come here, the music play. Life is a cabaret, old chum. Come to the cabaret. Put down the knitting, the book and the broom. Time for a holiday. Life is a cabaret.
I heard that the direction. Now I don't know if this was for the original, for the London, or it was for Natasha Richardson, but she's pregnant leading up to these scenes, and
that's true, right?
It's almost shock after post-abortion. That's the vibe.
Right.
Like it's supposed to be this sort of pain.
I can see that.
Painful, just in shock, just completely wrecked.
Yeah.
And almost catatonic.
Yeah.
That was the direction. And that's a really interesting way to do it, because you don't really get a lot of her experience of between going to get the abortion and getting rid of her coat, and then when she decides to leave, or Chris decides, or Brian, there are so many different versions. Cliff decides to leave at the end, and it's a way for us to experience the trauma of the choice that she made.
Yeah,
at that point in the show.
So it's just the contrast in not only the direction but the actors' choices and all of that. And when you see it without any of that context, you're just like, why isn't she dancing?
Yeah.
Because look at the movie. I mean,
Yeah.
she's just like, whatever.
Yeah. And she comes, and that's one part of the movie when she does sing Cabaret. It's the title track.
I was
and
gonna
it's
say,
the last song in the movie.
when I revisit this movie, I'm always just like, when the fuck is she gonna sing Cabaret? We're almost like at the 2.5 hour marker of this movie.
11:45.
Yeah.
In this movie.
Seriously.
Yeah.
It's not quite 2.5 hours. It's just over 2 hours.
It's just over 2 hours, but yeah. And she is wearing like a purple jumpsuit. I
Very
feel like
70s.
it's the least period thing in this movie
Yeah.
because we said they took a lot of pains to get as authentic. This outfit is like, what is going on?
Liza
She's
just
going
showed
to
up.
Studio 54
Yeah.
Liza
right
just
after the take.
showed up to set wearing that day.
Yeah, totally.
I remember being in dance when I was a kid, and there was a high schooler that was doing this number, and I had never heard this song.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
And
wow.
I just remember just thinking, like, what is this song?
Was it a lip sync?
What is this like song, like singing about her dead friend, but just being like fascinated with it and just listening to it without any context at all. Like that was my first like just kind of glimpse into this cabaret world.
Well, I think the song is supposed to represent kind of this, again, ambivalence about what's going on. Like, don't worry about what's going on around you. Have fun. Don't worry about it. Life's too short. Life's a cabaret. And it's like this kind of, this thing like, the world's falling apart around you, but you need to live. And I feel like it's very much a celebratory thing for Liza in the movie. And what the revival did is, again, humanize it in a way that's just, you see the tragedy of it as well. And there's a sadness around it. I don't know if, the loneliness of Liza at the end when the lights go down and this idea of that she's alone, I think is what they were trying to give that sense that she is left behind.
Right.
That attitude does not survive the regime that's coming to basically take over, that the party is over.
Yeah.
But it's done so well in the revival. I think the movie's great. I mean, it's its own thing. It's just different.
Yeah,
in the way they end it, because the MC also ends it kind of menacing.
Yes,
Again,
very menacing.
A bit of
at the
a
end
wink,
of the movie.
like, you still having fun?
Mm-hmm.
I thought
look
so.
what's happening.
Look what's happening. We're fucked. But we don't know what happens to him. He just vanishes.
Yep.
He's like, I'm out.
That weird, like, mirror, like funhouse mirror situation.
The reflecting back, which was in the original Broadway production. There was a huge mirror above in the proscenium that reflected onto the actual audience.
Oh, okay.
So they could see themselves.
Yeah,
as participants.
That's cool.
Cool, right?
Yeah.
So they brought it
especially
in the movie.
because it's the whole thing is the theater.
It's cool.
Liza's opening number that we forgot about earlier is Mein Herr. Ooh. And that performance, that's the one.
So good.
That's the look. The
that's
halter
the more
top,
iconic cabaret number, right?
The hat, yeah. And she even has like, it almost looks like she's got like buns in the back of her hair, but it does.
It's almost a different
wig.
It's
a different, like a wig or something.
Again, this could have been a change that they decided after they shot it. They're like, this isn't working. Let's put her in this. Because the hair is different.
Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier, maybe this time was not in the original production.
It was
they added
not.
it for the movie.
And
it's such a beautiful song.
And now it's in the shows, right?
Correct.
Now,
they've added it back in to the shows. Usually in the first act it happens. They added it in for I think the 87 revival, which was very much similar to the 66, but they did bring in the bisexuality and they brought in maybe this time. But Joel Grey starred in that too.
Interesting.
But it was the same aesthetic, from the original.
Sure.
Very not the movie.
I happen to like Nia Vardalos and Toni Collette do a rendition of Maybe This Time in Connie and Carla.
You're right. They do.
I remember.
I think they do a couple songs from Cabaret.
When we ran into Alex Mappa at Casita del Campo and you mentioned that movie, and he just had this reaction of,
I was like,
why?
I love Connie and Carla. I was like, I love Connie and Carla. I try and get him to watch it, and he goes, why?
Why?
I'm like, it's cute.
Well, my favorite rendition of Maybe This Time, do you remember when Vera Farmiga sang it on Bates Motel?
Oh my goodness, I forgot.
It was
about
like
that.
her audition piece for like a community theater, and she goes in with this.
That's true. She
rendition
does.
of Maybe This Time. It's
Guys,
very
the
beautiful.
show showed up in Schitt's Creek.
It was in Schitt's Creek.
It's like
the
this
entire
show is
production.
everywhere.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten there yet on Schitt's
it's
Creek.
It's
like
practically
second to last season or something.
Yeah, it's practically the end.
Yeah.
And that actress, I always forget her name, but she plays Stevie in Schitt's Creek. She's
Sally. Well, almost it was Moira
for
a hot second. When she comes out in that outfit, and you're just like, she's ready to go. You're like, yes. Yes, she is.
Yeah, it's like you said before, it's one of these... it's one of these things that's so just kind of woven into pop culture that even if you haven't seen it, you know what it is. You know these images and even the songs because it's just kind of everywhere in pop culture. So
Mine Hair and the chair choreography, that's all that's a thing.
I mean, that's just classic Bob Fosse choreography.
There's moments in Willkommen when they're all together in a group and they're going side to side across the
Fosse
stage.
Shuffle or whatever they call it.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, no, it's Amoeba. It's the Fosse Amoeba or something like that. I think
and I'm just like, well, that is just the Pussycat Dolls just ripped that right out.
So many people have stolen. I mean, Beyonce. I don't say Beyonce stole. It's an homage.
It's an homage, exactly.
It's an homage. Yeah.
But yeah, all those Pussycat Doll numbers from like the early 2000s, that's just straight out
and
of
just
these
the
movies.
Pussycat Dolls is just its own like
it's
tarted up
lift,
cabaret act.
Yeah, lift of. There's even the girl in like the sailor suit. Like,
I love the Kit Kat girls. Those are
good.
That's my thing. I just I love shows that have like I always say I love shows with whores in it.
Yeah.
But it's not really that. It's like I love Sweet Charity and
Yes,
Chicago.
yes,
I just love these showgirls that are just kind of I don't know. I just like it. I think it's great.
The girls in this. The Kit Kat girls in this movie, they just have this like just dark circles around their eyes and like white faces, and they're just so like
they're in on it.
Yeah, they're just like tired looking and just kind of like
rode hard and put away
wet,
as they say.
And they don't all have like these like hard dancer bodies that you know when you watch Chicago.
They're very real looking women.
They're real.
Yeah.
This is probably what the girls were like.
Yeah.
You know, in these little clubs.
Totally.
So great.
Yeah, love that. We talked a little bit about Sally Bowles having to get an abortion. She talked a little bit about that plot point in the movie. She comes out she tells Brian that she's pregnant, and he's like, well, do you know which one it is? Because at this point,
and
it's
she's
like,
I don't know.
Yeah, it could be either one of us.
He decides to raise it. He wants to.
Yeah,
but
he offers to go back to England with him, have a family.
She can't
raise the kid, and she's just like
she makes the choice not to do it. Doesn't tell him until it's too late.
Yeah, until after the fact. She kind of for little hot seconds kind of agree to it.
Yeah.
Oh, she did.
Yeah,
she was all into
to
it. Oh yeah.
But then she's just like, how long is it going to be until we're just at each other's throats?
Yeah, they have this like little montage that happens where she's thinking about the cabaret and performing and the seduction of it, and she just her face, you can see her shifting her thoughts about how this life could be, and that might not be the life for her.
And at this point, we haven't seen Sally perform at the cabaret. There hasn't really been a song for a while.
No.
The last performance that she did was maybe this time.
Or Money.
Or Money.
I love Money.
Money.
I think that's my favorite song of the movie.
But I was going to say about maybe this time, the presentation of it, it's almost, you don't even see the crowd.
True.
It's almost you only see her. It's very tight on her like the whole time.
Is it supposed to be in a rehearsal?
So
maybe not,
maybe,
or I forget because there's like I feel like there is someone out in the audience, but it's less of a big night. It's either a really slow night or a rehearsal or something. And it's very intimate.
So at this point in the movie, you kind of do see that Sally is missing the the show. Life or whatever.
Yeah, she's a performer.
She can't be tied down.
And she can't be tied down. She's not, and she's an American girl. She's an expatriate. She's living in Berlin. She's going to go live in, especially like England in the 30s. That would be
Well, that's what he escaped from.
Yeah.
And why would he drag her back?
Super depressing.
Yeah, that would be just not a fun life at all, especially for this kind of a person.
She's running. She's constantly running, and that would prevent her from being free.
Yes.
Do we want to briefly talk about her relationship with her father? I always think those are very interesting. Just sort of Sally of how she tries to kind of when she talks about her father. And then in reality, it's very, very different.
Well, she kind of like, I don't think she's a trust fund baby because she's not wealthy, obviously, but she's obviously given this free reign to do what she wants. It doesn't seem like a runaway situation, but he's kind of also a little, she's untethered, from him in a way, but she feels this need to pull back into him when he's in town, and then he totally stands her up, right?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he writes her a letter or something.
He writes her a letter.
And just kind of like tells her some thoughts that she's just like, oof.
In a telegram.
Yeah.
And I think he didn't pay extra, she says, because it would have cost him more.
Yeah.
You know, just what her value
Yeah.
is with him, you know, kind of sends that home. Again, she's kind of, in many ways, fatherless. That's how
Yeah.
she comes across, you know, as kind of her own, on her own.
And,
Yeah.
you know, she's living in this flat and, you know, she takes in Brian as a roommate and she's got all these like money making schemes. Like if we get you these students, then we can charge this much. And so
She gets
it seems like she knows how to hustle.
She gets some translating smut
Oh, right.
for a local writer.
Pornographer.
Yeah. But I mean, hey, that is even a hustle of that it happens today. Some kids that are just like, they actually do come from money and have a little bit put away and they're still getting stuff from their parents, but they put on this show of
She's
being like
kind of like a millennial.
Yeah.
But poor. Really
Yeah.
poor and
But
doesn't have a
actually
place
poor.
to live. That's her parents, you know. She's in
Yeah.
Berlin. I give her I give her all the credit for taking a chance
That's
getting
scary.
out there. That's
Yeah.
scary. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, Christopher, you know, he has, you know, he's college educated. He's
Yeah.
rolling in from England.
and
with
it's
a little
different
bit
in
of
Europe.
wealth, or,
Going
you know.
from one country
Yeah.
to another in Europe
She's
is
an
like going to a different
American.
state.
Yeah.
Coming from America,
in
that's
Berlin in the 30s to be this actress, you
Yeah.
know. I mean, yeah, it was a hub for, you know, showbiz at the time, but still, that's a big jump.
Oh yeah,
For
totally.
a young girl of 25 or whatever
yeah.
she is.
Yes.
I did look up that Liza was 25
She was 25.
when she made this movie. Yeah,
Okay.
thought so.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, did you want to talk about Liza and one Vincent Minnelli and his influence on this role? Is that what you were talking about before? When you said relationship with the father, or were you talking about?
Oh, I was
Brian
talking
as
about
well?
the character.
Yeah, but I thought you mentioned too.
I mean, I'm
She
sure
had a very
that
strong
Liza just
relationship.
had
Yeah.
a very interesting relationship with her father in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was very close to, I think, her dad, who also was gay, apparently.
Yep.
Or
Right.
closeted.
Right.
I think from what I understand, he was a little bit more of an anchor to her than her mother
Well,
was,
yeah.
because her mother was traveled so much and also a performer, you know. But he was the musical guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So he, you know,
Yeah.
probably had a huge influence on her getting to this point in her career and she took him the Oscars with her.
Oh,
you
wow.
know? Yeah.
You mentioned earlier about questions that she had about how she should take on the role that she had with.
Yeah, because she was talking about the look of Sally, and she sort of had these ideas that she was going to be like Marlene Dietrich, and that's when her dad said, no, you should study everything about Louise Brooks.
Good choice.
So yeah, otherwise, I mean, because Marlena is like something that you would immediately think, oh, okay,
Especially for Germany.
30s Germany,
this
who am I
time.
going to do?
Yep.
But
Makes
not
sense.
a vamp.
Yeah.
She like Louise
Yeah.
Brooks is the vamp.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She's much more of she's a little bit darker and and the dark hair and a little sultry and
Yeah.
it works. It's so iconic now for Liza.
Louise
you
Brooks
know?
was just like the OG cool girl.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that was a good choice that he gave her.
Yeah.
I was really smart.
It's it's leaning more flapper, you know, and also too that like those early Joan Crawford like flapper, you know, roles.
Yeah.
Of that look.
And Marlene
Yeah,
Dietrich is such an established professional that idea of kind of creating that kind of iconic, you know, talent
Yeah.
almost is a disservice to Sally, because Sally's supposed to be a little bit of a climber, a struggler,
Yeah.
a little bit more, you know, younger and kind of hungrier. And that seems more like the it girl, like Louise Brooks, the younger, hungrier, you know, vampy type. I don't
Yeah.
know. To me, at least. So I don't know. It all works.
Yeah. And then there's that scene when they are on the little rowboat, and Max is he taking pictures? Does he have a camera?
Yeah.
And she's like
she's
posing
modeling for him. She's in her
posing.
little bathing
Yeah, her
costume.
bathing costume, and she's doing poses, and with each one she's like Clairbeau.
Yep.
You know, she's like naming all, you know, these actresses.
Yeah.
And then she finally just says Sally Bowles.
And she has a favorite actress too. She talks about.
Yes, it is a crazy name that I
Yeah.
was like, who? I don't know that name. Probably a silent film actress.
Yeah, I forget who it was.
I'm just thinking of who Nicole Kidman was obsessed with in the Moulin Rouge.
Sarah Bernhardt. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's not Sarah Bernhardt.
It's
one
not
of those,
Sarah
like,
Bernhardt.
kooky named like silent film ladies. But
Do we want to talk a little bit about Liza's career after this movie? So it's kind of interesting about Liza as a movie star, and she's such a big personality. But I mean, outside of Cabaret and like Arthur
Stepping out.
yeah,
stepping out, it
Not
was
a
kind
lot.
of fun to see her show up on Arrested Development. as Lucille too, that she was just sort of leaning into just being such a kook.
I think she kind of took. I mean, yeah, she did some film, and I don't know if this is by her choice or just if she was just so identifiable, as Sally Bowles, it was hard to cast her in other things. Plus, you don't get a lot of. I mean, you got some movie musicals in the late 70s, but I don't know. They didn't do Chicago right away.
Yeah.
I mean, movie musicals were pretty much dead until like Evita.
Well, they did like
Moulin
Grease.
Rouge
They
came
did
out.
Grease
Sure.
and Annie, and I mean all those things. But different type of musical.
Yeah, definitely.
And a much more modern.
Would love to see Liza as Mrs. Hannigan. She would be really fun as Mrs. Hannigan.
Actually, she would. That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like when I think of Liza's post-Cabaret career, I think of her doing a lot of headline shows where she, and I think of Studio 54,
Yeah.
I think of her being this personality
Yes.
of nightclub life. Like she went back to Broadway. She took over Chicago for a little bit, I think for Gwen Verdon. She did The Act, which is another by Cantor and Ebb, another show they wrote for her. She did a lot of Radio City Music Hall, like Liza at there, here,
Right,
this, that,
right.
All the way into the 80s, 90s. And then she's had a lot of struggles with illness. So I think that's derailed a little bit of her career. But she had a pretty prolific live performance.
Yeah.
1972 was a really big year for both her and Bob Fosse because of Liza with a Z, Pippin on Broadway, which she was not involved in, but obviously Fosse did, and then Cabaret. So that was like, talk about a zeitgeist year for Bob Fosse and her. But she, Liza with a Z. I mean, the end of the show is all Cabaret medley. So she was definitely going off that high of doing that show or that movie into her career. And yeah, you're right. Film wise though, not a lot. Not a lot of stuff. Arthur, I'm trying to think, and Stepping Out, those are only two that... Oh, New York, which was not a big hit.
No, not a big hit.
With, what's his name? De Niro, right?
In New York, yeah, I think so.
It's De Niro. It's not Pacino. It's De Niro, I think. Yeah, and anyway. Yeah, I don't think of her as a film person beyond Cabaret.
You just don't get a lot of that kind of, superstar performer anymore. It's like one thing or the other,
It's so sad to me.
Yeah.
There's no what I lament, and I always use her as a reference, or even a Carol Burnett or like a Carol Channing, or the way they're a lot of actresses and actors too, but they're so generic. Like they don't have their own individual. There's not a lot that have their own individual thing that they're memorable for. Like that you just. It's a personality. It's like and maybe that's an advantage because you can play more things and do more stuff. You don't get pigeonholed into being Dolly or Sally Bowles,
right?
Sure, I get it, but at the same time, I miss that character that comes with some of these actresses from a different, from these other decades that just they're iconic performances, and I think she was fairly successful in keeping that image and that type of character, that Sally Bowles nightclub person, going for a couple decades.
Yes,
I do think she did it, even if it wasn't captured in film. I think live and in recordings, she did it. She collaborated with the Pet Shop Boys. She did other stuff. She did keep herself going. Studio 54. I mean, how can you
she was besties with what's his name,
Halston.
Well, with Halston and the guy that ran Studio 54 that went to prison,
Steve Rubell.
Steve.
Yeah, and Halston was kind of like her Givenchy for Audrey Hepburn. That was the person who kind of created her look. Which is so neat. You don't get that as much anymore.
Exactly.
I mean, you do, but you don't. Not quite the same way.
And you can't even compare. I mean, it's kind of lazy to use Lady Gaga as an example, but even Lady Gaga, even just sort of the personality of Stephanie is just very.
She's the closest.
Yeah. I'm curious of when we start to see Lady Gaga in more movies. If we'll start to see this is a Lady Gaga performance in a movie,
right?
But
it's hard to say right now. I think Lady Gaga is extremely talented, in her own way, but she's the closest to that type of actress, in my opinion.
Lady Gaga would be really fun to see play Sally in Cabaret.
She'd probably do a great job.
Yeah.
So I kind of briefly wanted to talk a little bit about this Best Actress year because it's kind of a big deal. When Liza won the Oscar, this was the first time in Oscar history that there was 2 black actresses.
Right.
There was Diana Ross for Lady Sings the Blues as Billie Holiday, and Cecily Tyson in Sounder.
Right.
Is this the first and only time there are 2 black actresses?
I mean, it happened again this year.
For Best
did?
Actress? Oh, yeah, it did happen again this year.
Yeah.
Okay. But
Andrew Day and Viola Davis.
35 years in between.
It usually happens in
40
supporting
years in
actress.
between. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's interesting when you watch clips of this ceremony, you can tell both
The tension.
Cecily Tyson and Diana Ross just have this very defeated look on their face.
Yeah.
Because it would have been so amazing if either of them would have won. But there was just no competing with Liza.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people think that Diana could have won for that role, which I don't disagree. I think she's fantastic in it. It didn't happen, obviously. But there's a lot of talk about those 2 going up for the same part that year. But Liza got it.
And the other 2 were Liv Ullmann and Maggie Smith.
Yeah.
Okay. And Liv Ullmann's movie was not in English.
It was in Swedish.
In Swedish.
Yep.
Swedish?
And Maggie Smith's movie was like this crazy...
Travels
like,
with My Aunt, a
old
movie
lady
that
makeup.
was not liked at the time it came out.
But what's not to like about Maggie Smith?
Everyone loves Maggie Smith.
I mean, I know I do.
She'd be someone that would play Sally Bowles
Yeah.
As written,
on Broadway. As
Sure.
written. She would be fantastic.
Yeah.
She's a Judi Dench-ish, kind
Like
of like...
60s and 70s Maggie Smith?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I could totally see it.
Yeah.
Actually, she's probably more what the character really was
Right,
like.
yeah.
She could probably do a better job with that.
Isn't that so interesting, though, that like when a character that goes on to become so iconic and takes on the life of its own, when it is based on somebody real, I'm sure when this woman was still alive and the original productions were around, there probably was a lot of like, oh, who is she? Where is she? What is she up to? And just the idea of like, are you this woman? Are you this crazy flighty? Like, are you sleeping with every guy?
Yeah.
And it's just like, I'm just a person.
She's just a person. She wasn't. Her name was Jean Ross.
Okay.
And there's pictures of her, and she's beautiful and kind of androgynous. Kind of short haircut. I think she's wearing a suit in a picture that I saw, and I suggest everybody read Goodbye to Berlin.
Yeah.
I need to read it. I've only read A Single Man.
Which is also
By
fantastic.
Isherwood,
Yeah, it's great. And, he did, Goodbye Berlin. And also read Christopher and His Kind. Christopher and His Kind is a very personal, more autobiographical tale of his time in Berlin. And you get the real good stuff about his gay life and what that was like in Berlin at the time. I mean, Berlin is still a wonderfully sexual, fantastic gay city, despite having been blown up so many times. I mean, it's amazing how it keeps reinventing and finding that energy.
Yeah.
But having gone and having went to his old neighborhood and walked around, and the guide showed us where the clubs were and what they were like. I mean, not that I want to be alive in 1933 Germany, but if I can go for even a day.
You could get in your time machine
I would go.
and go back.
I would totally Doctor Who that shit.
Spend a week there.
I would Doctor
Go
Who
back
the
a few
shit
times
out
a
of it.
month.
I would totally go. I mean,
That's
I would
fun.
love to have seen it. It seemed so, I don't know, wonderful.
Yeah.
But also scary. But also wonderful. I don't know. It's all gone. And that's what's so sad.
Yeah, a very unique time in history. A very specific, it's literally the time between World War I and World War II.
It is.
When this little spark of something was
The
happening.
Roaring 20s.
In Berlin.
230s, which we're now about to go into. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Possibly.
Exactly.
After a lot of devastation and sadness, these things happen. And then it's not having it fall into something even more sad and scary after that. So I don't know. I feel like that this movie and these stories are so important right now for people to see and to understand, because we are living in similar times in many ways.
Yeah, definitely.
There's a fascism that's here now, and we need to pay attention to it, and we can't be ignorant and blind and just party on these next 10 years. We have to remember that there still is darkness in there.
Yeah, definitely.
So, sorry to bring it down.
On
everybody.
that note. Oh, man. But, I mean, this movie it's still a lot of fun. Like, there's It's one of those movies that there's so much going on.
I think it gets better with repeat viewings.
It does get better with repeat viewings.
I thought that last night because this is only my second time watching it.
Yeah. But there's so much going on in the movie that with the stage productions and the books and the real people that it's based on, there's so much that you can just, and if you're like the two of us, like Scott and I, when all that stuff is there, we're just immediately like looking everything up on Wikipedia.
You just go on this Wikipedia rabbit hole.
Yeah, and then you go and find the videos on YouTube of past performances and see the different actresses and all of that. And there's just so much content out there to look up and figure out and read about. But it's really enlightening because it's not just a fun movie with fun songs. There's also all
there's
this
history.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of history, a lot of culture, and a lot of really fantastic performances that have come out of these stories. These stories have taken on a life of their own.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure.
Have you ever met Liza?
I have not met her. I've seen her perform at the Hollywood Bowl, and she sat behind me at Liza with a Z.
What was that like?
Fantastic. I mean, she's adorable. She's so cute. I mean, she's, she wasn't like, standing on the seats, like being passed around with high kicks. I mean, she's at that point was probably like in her 60s, and but I just find her so endearing and charming. I don't know her. She's a treasure. I don't know her personally. I mean, I saw her at the Hollywood Bowl, and she was basically wearing like a sequenced top, a scarf, and no pants. You know what I mean? And to me, just to be able to do that when you're 65 years old, and just her, she's just legendary. I want her to win a Kennedy Center honor. Oh, yeah. So every year it comes out, and I'm waiting for her to get one, and they still haven't given it to her. And I'm trying to figure that out because to me, I just think she's just one of a kind. And I just think that trumps any kind of, like multi-Oscar win or like, and she's won an Emmy. She's won an Oscar. I don't think she's won a Grammy, but she
doesn't have a Grammy.
I don't know. She might have. Wow. I don't think she's a Grammy. I could be wrong. She is a Tony. I don't think she's an EGOT, though.
Yeah, interesting.
Anyway.
You just can't compare her to anyone else, and that is so remarkable.
Yeah, I just think she's fascinating, and she just turned 75.
Wow.
She's still there.
Yeah,
still here.
75. That's not that old.
It's not that old.
That's not that old.
It's not.
I mean, the only person I guess you could put her in a category with is maybe Barbra Streisand, right?
But Barbra Streisand's mother was not super famous.
True.
Like
I
Judy.
mean, yeah, that's the one thing that's kind of puts her in
there's
this
history
category.
there. Just kind of Hollywood folklore,
Yeah.
What did you think of the Liza scenes in Judy with Renee Zellweger? I thought it was interesting because they purposely did not do the voice.
She's a very hard character to play. So I've seen 2 versions now, or 3, I guess if you count the Me and My Shadows, which she's in a telephone call, which she looks a lot like her, but she's like, "Hi, Mama," and that's it. But okay, so the Judy, so fine, you know what I mean? Again, how do you bring that character in without her not trying to overshadow the main character, which is Judy Garland, Renee Zellweger? You just have to make her this kind of little part. I saw The Boy from Oz on Broadway, which is the Hugh Jackman about Peter Allen, which was Liza Minnelli's first husband, who was also gay. And that was played by Stephanie Block. And, I thought she did a really nice job. But again, you just cannot capture Liza.
Yeah.
She's just, I've seen drag queens do it. And I've seen, certain Broadway actress, or Broadway type women who do impersonations do a really good job, but it's always in a campy kind of humorous form. Just to portray her legitimately is hard.
Oh yeah, it's got to be tough.
Because she so transcends kind of humankind to me, because she's so unique and special, I think.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. I'm wearing my Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead t-shirt. When Christina Applegate and Keith Coogan look at each other and both go, Liza?
So anytime drag queens do Liza now, they always wear the red sequin pantsuit.
Yep.
What is that from?
So, it's a good question. I feel like it's from one of her acts.
It's got to be,
It's from one of her acts, like Radio City Music Hall. You can see.
Yeah.
She also wore something like that, I feel like, in New York, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, but it's always the red sequin.
Yeah, that's one of her looks. Red and black, or pink, hot pink.
Hot pink.
Hot pink is also one of her colors. Yeah, though she wore a beautiful yellow to the Academy Awards.
Yes, I was noticing that.
That Oscar ceremony where it was just like they had to sit Lupita Nyong'o right across from Liza.
Remember that one?
Yeah. When she won, it was just like Liza was the first person that she hugged. Like, Liza, I couldn't have done this without you. And poor Liza didn't get in the selfie. She was too short.
Oh, she was too short. I mean, not for not trying.
She had a blast.
Yeah,
you can tell she was
fun.
having fun.
She was having the time of her life there.
I'm here.
Yeah.
You know, she moved from New York to L.A. I believe she's living here now.
Okay.
And she's very close to Michael Feinstein, who, I don't know if you guys know, but is like a kind of a keeper of the American Songbook and pianist and performer. And he actually does stuff at the Arboretum usually every year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yeah. He does the summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've met him before. He's a nice guy. I think he's very close with her. So sometimes you'll see her on some videos with him. He'll post some stuff, which is neat. Yeah. But I don't know if she's going to perform again.
Yeah.
Like she did. You know, even in the last 5 years, you know, she was in New York doing some stuff, but I haven't heard anything about that.
And we'll leave out that last marriage.
Oh yeah,
oh yeah,
yeah.
When wasn't Michael Jackson the best man?
Yeah, Liz Taylor was the
Liz Taylor
maid
was the maid of honor.
Matron of honor.
What was that guy's name?
David Guest.
David Guest.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that weirdo.
Unlucky in love, or maybe not. Maybe she has had an amazing love affair, and maybe we'll just never know.
Yeah,
she's keeping it for herself.
Yeah, exactly. That's for her.
That's for her. I mean, in Boy from Oz, the Peter Allen thing. I mean, they loved each other, you know. And again, this gay man with Liza, it just sometimes just makes sense, you know. But
yeah,
here we are.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the thing about Cabaret, the film, is that it's just so entwined with Liza Minnelli, the actress, the person, the persona, and all that. We take so much time talking about Cabaret, but we're talking about just Liza. But I mean,
but it transcends the character,
yes.
Sally Bowles.
Yeah.
She is. It's beyond Sally.
Yeah,
you know, it becomes Liza.
Yeah.
So.
And I mean, if you don't have time, I mean, even just go to YouTube and just watch the performances of Mein Herr and you know. And Cabaret.
And kudos to Bob Fosse for filming her in such a fantastic way.
Yeah.
I mean, the mood and the ambiance and the way he captures the light and the shadows of her, you know,
I was thinking
in those
of how this movie was cut for a musical.
Yeah.
That, like, the cut, it's super fast, it's very quick. This is also coming off of just sort of the golden ages of musicals that kind of died in the late 60s, and it kind of reinvented how you watch a movie musical.
Yeah, I agree. It might have won Best Editing. I think it should. It's really well done. He did a good job. There's a lot about the editing of that movie in Fosse Verdon, too.
Oh, okay.
There's a whole episode kind of about it.
Interesting.
Or framed with that, yeah. Yeah.
Well, we'll definitely check that out.
And that's Sam Rockwell, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Michelle Williams.
Oh, that's right. I forgot it is Sam Rockwell.
He does a good job.
Did he win something for that? Did he win the Globe?
Nominated.
I mean, I'm just glad that Sam Rockwell is just not playing a racist. Because that's just sort of
happens to him a lot.
The go-to character type that Sam Rockwell's been playing.
Role for him. I was actually, when I saw him in that role, I was like, oh, this is right.
Yeah.
I get this.
Okay.
I think he did a good job.
All right.
Yeah.
Sounds good. I mean, do we have any closing thoughts on Cabaret to leave our listeners with? Just go watch it.
Watch it now. I mean, it's a good movie for now.
Yeah.
Does my body make you wild with desire?
So many good lines in that.
Yeah, a lot. So many, just the close-ups on her face, those huge eyes,
those eyelashes, those iconic eyelashes.
Yeah, watch it. That's all we have to say.
Yep, film candy for sure.
We have to appreciate Liza while we still have her. I mean, she's not like ancient. Like she's 75, so she still has a good 15 more years left in her. But you know, we have to appreciate her.
Yeah,
I do
for sure. Yeah,
I do.
We definitely do here at this podcast. So go watch. It's not streaming on anything right now, so you have to rent it.
I bought it off iTunes.
But hey, we bought it off iTunes. Just
worth every $12.99.
What's it going to be? $2.99 to rent for 2 days?
Right, and it's going to be the 50th anniversary next year.
Oh, okay.
So if you can't watch it this year, next year I'm sure there will be somewhere in a film festival or somewhere,
or Hulu or somebody
4K release or something.
Yeah, for sure. So do yourself a favor. Get with it. Watch the movie. This was so much fun.
Thank you for coming back on.
No, thanks for letting me geeking out about this movie.
We're almost on
we love
episode 100, so I
Wow.
kind of wanted to call back some of our original guests.
Earlier guests, yeah.
So
Well, I'm honored to be back.
Yeah.
Thank
Yes.
you for letting me
I'm
ramble
glad that
all
we
things
finally got to Liza.
Cabaret and
No,
Liza,
yeah, we needed your Liza Cabaret Isherwood geekiness to talk about all this, because otherwise we would have just been making things up.
It's fun. I enjoy it. I enjoy the movie.
Yeah, definitely.
And I enjoy this podcast.
Oh, thank you.
A lot.
So much.
This show. Thanks so
Fantastic,
much.
darling.
Yeah, thanks so much. Well, it has been so much fun, but it's about that time.
Boo.
Yeah, boo. We'll definitely have you on again.
Thank you.
For something else in the future. But we have some stuff to take care of as far as shout outs, new Patreon members, all of that good stuff. But we'll probably let you go for that and not record that afterwards, because you don't want to stick around for all the boring paperwork. Not that saying hi to our fans is boring. Patreon listeners. We'll get to you in a second. But until then, Darren, this has been a blast.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Auf Wiedersehen.
Auf Wiedersehen. And thank you so much for listening, everybody.
Fun episode.
Fun episode. We love Cabaret. And we love Darren. That was so much fun having him on the show again. Well, it is that time to say some hellos, some Patreon shout-outs. Hello. And we also have a new review to read on the air. Yay! We've been saying that we'll read your reviews on an episode, and it's about that time. So we'll do the review first, and then we'll do our Patreon shout-outs, because we have some new patrons. So this review is from listener Harry Potter's BFF via Apple Podcasts Canada. So an international listener.
Yeah.
From all the way across the waters in Canada, America's hat.
All the way across the country line of Canada.
Exactly. So this is from Harry Potter's BFF. Great podcast. I've only listened to a few episodes, but they are doozies. Perfect if you're gay, love movies, and remember that special feeling that certain films brought out in you when you were a mere gayling. That feeling that said, I'm not the only one. The hosts are personable, well-informed, and funny with just the right shade of sweetly catty. And all the gay icons get their due. But very importantly, you certainly don't have to be gay to enjoy the podcast. There's something for any movie lover. Highly recommend.
Yay, that's so
Yay.
sweet.
Yes, indeed. They're absolutely right.
I love that.
Exactly. I love it too. And we have some new patrons. We want to give some new shout out to some new Patreon patrons. We'd like to say hello to Heather and Muffy. Welcome to our Patreon.
Yay.
Yay. Heather and Muffy are actually $10 a month Liesel von Ruhmen level patrons. So they get access to everything, including the monthly Watch With Us commentary tracks, of which we just dropped 2 very recently.
Yes.
What did we drop, Scott?
Can Hardly Wait and Legally Blonde.
Yes, indeed. So you can head over to our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/movie-that-made-us-gay to check out all of our commentary tracks.
We just voted on the 100th episode free Patreon commentaries to kind of get a taste of what the $10 level is like.
Yes, indeed. We had everybody vote on Instagram. So if you're not following us on Instagram, head over to Instagram. We're at Movies That Made Us Gay. We had a little vote, and it got down to
10 Things I Hate About You, and I Know What You Did Last Summer.
And the winner is
10
Things I
Things.
Hate About
Yeah.
You. So we're going to be doing a free Watch With Us commentary track, posting that on Patreon. So you don't have to be a Patreon member at any level. This will be free to everybody. And this is going to be released during our 100th episode celebration.
In a few weeks.
In a few weeks. This is episode 96. So, yeah, 4 weeks.
We're getting
from now.
there.
We're getting there. We're getting there. So about a month from now, we're going to do our recording of a new commentary track, and it'll be posted on the Patreon. But until then, if you want to listen to any of our commentary tracks, head over to patreon.com.
Join up.
Movies That Made Us Gay and join. $10. You can listen to all 8, I believe, commentary tracks.
Mm-hmm.
There's also the bonus Oscar special.
Yes,
which
it's
has
true.
been added.
The Oscar special in its entirety.
Yes, the full Oscar special, and that is available to any level of patron. So even if you're our Chastity Pariah level, or if you are at a Liesel von Rumen level, there's also one level in between, and I can never remember what that is.
It's the Shirley MacLaine.
It's the Weezer Boudreaux.
Yep.
Yes, indeed. So all 3 levels, you will have access to the Oscar special, the full Oscar special. If not, you can listen to it over on Apple Podcasts or any of the free platforms, and that's about 35 minutes. But if you listen to it on the Patreon, free to everybody, or free to all Patreon members, it is the full, probably about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Version. So there you go. There's a ton of stuff on our Patreon. So thank you for joining up, Heather and Muffy. But we also have some tried and true patrons that we want to say hi to, just like we do every week. So hey there, Paul, Jamie, Drew, Jimmy, Genevieve, Dawn, Josh, Emily, Aaron, Melinda and Jim, Jessica, John, Nick, Christine, and Rufino. Thank you for being a friend. Yes, indeed. Also, we would love it if you would rate and review us over on Apple Podcasts.
Give us them 5 stars.
Yes, indeed. It is free and it takes no time at all. Just smash that 5-star button. And if you want to write us a review, we'll read it just like we read Harry Potter's BFF from all the way from Canada. That was a really fun one. There's another review, but we'll read it next week because we got 2 reviews. But yeah, thanks so much, you guys, for adding those 5-star likes and for writing those reviews. Those all really help us out a bunch. So do that over on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Movies That Made Us Gay, and Twitter
at MTMUGPod.
Yes, indeed. I am Peter, and I am on Instagram and Twitter at Peter Lasagna, and I am on Letterboxd. I think I am Peterific on Letterboxd.
And I am Oscar Scott on Twitter, Scott Youngballer on Instagram, and just Scott Youngbauer on Letterboxd.
Yes, indeed. Thanks so much, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.